It is that time again. Time to talk about sales, leadership, development, and all things street and all things electric. So welcome back to Electric People Podcast. I'm Ty Williams. This week we sat down with Matt Hinze to have him on the show. Matt Hinze is a veteran in the game. He's been a leader for, I'm trying to remember the timeline, but early in the 2000s. He was at Vivint Smart Home for the first half of his career and has been with us at Sunrun. He's actually had a chance to be with a couple other opportunities and gain tons of insight and experience. The thing I appreciate the most about Matt is he kind of outlines his story and just the extreme underlying tone of patience, perseverance, just constant tweaks and improvements have set him up to have the success that he's having right now. So the Hawaii team, shout out to my Ohe family out there on the island. They've been through a lot. This industry has been through a lot of transition and development, and Hawaii's kind of been the battleground and the testing ground for all of that, as far as how new technology works, how it works with utility companies, what it's like to face a resistant, archaic institution in the traditional power industry, and how to get through it. They've had their team grow and shrink and lose people and have all kinds of complications. But now when you look at them, they're thriving, they're crushing, they're on top of leaderboards, their per rep average is high, they're promoting new leaders, the feeling is amazing. And it's really easy to look at that group and say, oh, wow, what are you doing now? But realize it's the things that they've been doing for the last couple of years, even when the results didn't show, that talk about it. So Matt talks about that philosophy, talks about their brand, which I'll leave that to the podcast because it's amazing and it really symbolizes what's going on there. The thing that I like, or maybe want to call out as a friend of Matt's, is just his authenticity and his honesty. Talks about some things in this episode that often don't come up in day-to-day conversation, internal struggles, things with adequacy, substance, all that kind of stuff. And it's a really raw, honest, good way to look at progress in general. So shout out Matt for sitting down with us and doing this interview. Tune in. I think you'll learn something, and give our boy Matt Hinze a shout out when you're done with the episode. Enjoy this episode with Matt Hinze. The street is where we create. We call it suburbanpreneurship.
Mixing big company resources with an entrepreneurial spirit.
This is Electric People.
New Orleans looks good on you, dude.
Thanks.
Showed up straight from, wait, you were snowboarding where? You were in Utah?
I was in Pagosa Springs.
What's Pagosa Springs?
It's a hidden gem. It's in
What's
southern Colorado.
Are we giving it away to people? Now it's gonna start to, you're gonna send a flock of people there?
But there's lots of hot springs.
What's it called?
Pagosa Springs.
It's in what part of Colorado?
Pagosa Springs is the name of the little town we stayed.
It's in the, near Silverthorne, where all the resorts are,
It's by Durango.
Okay. What, was there a Pagosa Springs resort?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I lived in Colorado for a while, but we always rode Copper.
Okay, I never rode that one.
Yeah, so it goes Loveland, Copper, and then as you keep going deeper, you'll get to Vail eventually. But there's that. So you're in a different spot.
Yeah.
From Hawaii to Pagosa Springs to New Orleans.
It's pretty fun to live in Hawaii and then be in the snow.
I don't know. How do you pack for this trip?
Well, I have all my snowboarding stuff.
And your island wear.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to get into your story. You've been through a lot of different chapters in life and in the industry. And it was cool. I was driving the other day. We'll get into this, but I've always known you like to make music and stuff. And I had to run a bunch of errands with my son. I have an 8-year-old and he's learning how to surf. And I have lots of year-olds, but one of them is 8. And he's learning how to surf. And you had just texted me that you had just released your album on Spotify. And his name is Rome. I was like, Rome, this is my friend that made this music. And he was like, we should listen to it and see if it's good. And we got through the first 4 songs, and I was like, how do you like it? He's like, I like this guy. And so you're Rome approved, by the way. But yeah, I want to get into it because you've been through a lot of different chapters, and it's awesome to see you living well. You seem to be in a good chapter of life right now. Yeah.
I am. This last year was one of the best years of my life.
Wow, that's awesome. I don't know how many people would say 2024 was one of the best years of their life, but
it's been a really good year.
Yeah. What makes it a good year for Matt Hinze?
Well, I guess I would have to start with saying that I've been 100% sober and
All of 2024.
still and will
Wow.
be
Great.
from now forward.
Is that something that you set a goal to do, or just
No, it was just, well, yes. It's something that I've tried not to do, but done and had this like sense of guilt. And now that I don't do it anymore, I feel totally free
feel like aligned with yourself?
with who I am. And it started small. And the reason to continue to be sober is growing deeper and deeper and deeper with my relationships and my purpose in life. And I'm really, really happy. I'm feeling all the feelings now.
Yeah, it's weird. It's probably one of those things where at first, do you feel like you used to like turn to substance for like escape? Stress management?
Just kind of on the weekends, but I wasn't the guy that wanted just one. I would want three, And then, so that's completely out of my life now.
It's probably hard to come out of that because you kind of, especially when you're in it, you don't recognize the impact, right?
I've become more aware of how unaware I was.
Yeah, interesting.
And both of my wife's parents were alcoholics. And so I didn't recognize the fear that it was causing in her, and our relationship has grown so much deeper.
I knew that you were sober. I didn't know that there was that much behind it. That's cool. It's really valuable to be able to like, even the thoughts you're having now, like the recollection of like, oh, I didn't realize how much it was impacting things. Like that's where change happens when you're enlightened, right? Where you're like, oh, I see. And now like Monique, your wife, she's probably like, yeah, that's what I've been telling you for last year. And you're like, oh, like you're synced, That's cool. Congratulations, man. That's great.
I've also had I've had a lot of great mentors this last year. I started meeting with a pastor named Garrett Bonner.
Shout out Garrett
Believer
Bonner.
man. We've read lots of books together, and that's been a huge help. I talked to Tom and Marcia. They're like our marriage mentors every week. That's helped me be really accountable.
So it seems like a pretty deliberate year of self-improvement that's manifesting in a lot of different ways.
It has.
That's cool. That's great, man. I'm stoked to see that. I first noticed it where, Hawaii. Well, let's back up. Because a lot of people know Matt Hinze from Hawaii, but I actually know Matt Hinze from Alarm Days. You're originally from Arizona,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. How'd you get started in direct sales as a whole?
So Tom Ader, thank you, Tom Ader, one of my friends from Arizona. He did it a summer before, and
What year would that have been?
That was 2006.
Wow. For those that didn't know, you were an OG. Yes. Isn't that crazy? That was 18 years ago.
That is crazy.
You're coming up on the double decade.
So yeah, he had a brand new Honda Accord.
Whew.
And I was super impressed.
Yeah, turning heads with that thing.
And I grew up in a family of 9 kids, had to pay for mine in college.
You have 8 siblings?
I do, yes. Wow. I'm in the middle.
And the same parents?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They're still together.
Wild.
Yeah.
What did your parents do for a living?
My dad's a psychologist and my mom writes books, but she's mainly a stay-at-home mom.
Wow. Psychologist with 9 kids. That's wild.
So, I mean, we had what we needed, but I had to work to get things I wanted.
Yeah, maybe buy your own clothes if you wanted the nicer clothes or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so Tom did it. She told me about it, and I think by the end of my first year of college, I was $6,000 in debt, which seemed like a lot at the time.
It's an insurmountable hill. I remember I was dating this girl in college, and she had racked up $1,000 in credit card debt, and she didn't know how she did it. And for me, I was the same. I was kind of middle class, whatever. I had what I needed, but didn't have the brands that I always wanted. And we were dating, and she's she got this credit card bill, and she's like, I'm $1,000 in debt. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, how did you not know you spent $1,000? This is pre-Amazon and stuff. And I remember we were trying to solve the problem, and I ended up being like, you got to withdraw from your classes. You could still get money back. She withdrew from classes, got money back, got on top of that debt. Now I look at it, I'm like, that $1,000 hill for me at that time was insurmountable. So that's a big deal to be in college and $6,000 down.
That was a big deal.
Did you go to school in Utah? Is that how you got connected with?
I went to BYU.
Okay. So that's how you got connected with Smart Home.
And sales did not come easy for me. It was hard. My first summer was in Virginia.
Well, Virginia sales is hard too, man. That's a different world, right?
I grew to love it. I was the last person to sell on the team.
Wow. What does that feel like?
Well, I'm a pretty quiet person. Sometimes I say I'm shy, but people remind me I do door-to-door sales.
And you are a singer-songwriter, so how shy could you be?
But I am kind of a quiet person, and it's hard for me. And so, yeah, when I first started, not even close for a few days, and I just became a learning machine. I read Zig Ziglar, Secrets of Closing the Sale, or whatever it's called.
Let's see. He's the secret. All right. What is Zig's book? How to Master the Art of Closing. That's Tom Hopkins. Psychology of Selling Be Trace. Yeah, it's something with closing. Yeah.
Which Brian Tracy, Psychology of Selling is my favorite. The second favorite is Tom Hopkins.
That's the number one. Yeah. Dude, it's crazy. The Psychology of Selling, the POS is what we used to call it. I remember for our sales teams, Omar's cutting this podcast and he would get these. We sold together back in the day. Shout out, Omar. You never get, the guy behind the camera doesn't ever get the love, but he's my friend. But I would burn CDs for people, and the Psychology of Selling was a 2-disc, my friend. So it was POS 1 and POS 2. And so it was like rifling them into the CD drive, and everybody, when they signed up, they'd get a POS 1 and a POS 2.
I did POS. I remember doing that too better. For everyone.
That's better. But back in the early 2000s, they could have confused it with like POD, and they thought that they were hearing anyway, 2000s joke. So are you frustrated in your head and want to scream, or are you determined?
Very determined.
Very determined. Not deterred, determined.
No, not one bit. I mean, I like hard work. And so I devoured sales books. I'd work all day, read books right when I got home in the morning. So yeah, I read 2 books that first week. I mean, I was reading like hours at night. And then my very first Saturday, I sold 3 in like 2 hours. And I got to shout out the Baby Blue too. Do you know the Baby Blue?
No.
Okay, so
the Baby Blue polo. Yeah. Oh yeah. Go on.
First Saturday, I wore Baby Blue and I sold 3.
Mm-hmm.
And in about 2 hours. And since then, that's my
from that time
color.
Forward, dude. That's a real thing with I remember thinking that when I was I had my superstitions where it's like, if I go more than 2 days without shaving out, every other day I shave. And then I sell more in the blue shirt than the black shirt. Yeah. I'm going all blue, I don't know. I gave myself a summer buzz cut and I sold 4. So shaved head for selling,
I was always super clean cut until I moved to Hawaii.
Yeah.
I did long hair for a few years.
Yeah.
And then
got to give a shout out to Baby Blue.
Yeah.
You still rock Baby Blue, did you say?
It's the only color I wear.
Still?
Still.
You're carrying with you an 18-year superstition?
So, I mean...
We need to create a Matt Hinze Baby Blue line.
Baby Blue shirt.
Oh, that's amazing. Hey,
and there's a new Baby Blue in town. There's a new Baby Blue shirt on the store that I got.
And it's actually Baby Blue? Listen, I don't know if this is going to shatter your whole world, but it's not about the color, right?
I know that.
Okay. But still, you're not going to test it.
The job is harder when I don't wear Baby Blue.
Oh man, we need to create a collection that says that. The job just feels harder.
Even if I try to if I wear a different shirt, I'll keep a Baby Blue in the trunk. Just in case.
Just in case it gets weird out there. A lot of people don't understand the frustration of not selling. Being the last one in your office is hard. That's got to be hard.
It was really hard, yeah. So, and then by the end of the summer, I was the top salesperson. And that's kind of the story of my life. I'm a slow learner, but a hard worker. And I don't give up. And yeah, once I figure something out, I'm good at it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That's like an awesome claim to have. The last to sell and the highest selling. It's hard to keep that perspective though too, because in the summer it's an 18-week summer, right? So you get like 120 summer selling days, something like that. And so when you're seeing those days tick by, and then you see some people that are maybe your sloppy roommate that aren't as talented as you, that haven't worked as hard, that might be going into the end of first week with 7 and you still have 0, it feels like you'll never catch up, right? It's hard. It's like we were talking about the Navy SEALs in the previous podcast we did, and we were talking about how the thing that breaks them during Hell Week isn't how hard it is, it's the thought of having to continue. It's the thought of like, oh my gosh, if it's this cold in the ocean at 11 o'clock on Thursday night, how in the world am I going to last through Saturday? You know? And so it's funny, like we used to have this joke where day 1 in not selling alarms, it's like, oh man, that sucked. I worked for free. Day 2, you're like, okay, these people don't get it. Day 3, you're like, I'm not very good at this. Day 4, it's like, who am I? Like it happens that fast, you know? After 4 days, you got grown man crying stuff going on, you know? But stuck with it. Were you in what market in Virginia? That wasn't Virginia Beach. Was it Reston or Herndon or?
I worked in Hampton Bay. It wasn't called Virginia Beach office. It was called.
But it was that area.
Yes.
I went from California my first year to Virginia, and the difference was, I mean, literally like.
I really love that market. I grew to love it.
Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
I did too. Everybody passed credit, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Quick decision making.
quick decision making. Yeah. So if I felt like when you're Midwest, I could talk to anybody for an hour, but they could drop me at the last minute. In Virginia, it was hard to
they're
get
interested,
them.
and then they're not. You're like, what?
Yeah. But in Virginia, I learned to appreciate it. I was like, well, thank you for being efficient and getting me on to the next door if you're not interested. Thanks for not wasting 2 hours during prime time, you know? Yeah. So how long did you do security?
I did it to 2012 was my last year.
I didn't know you had a slow start. I always knew you as a really high seller. I didn't firsthand.
I've always been very consistent.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of big days. I mean, I'll do 5 or sometimes, but some of these guys, you know, can do crazy numbers.
That's kind of how I was. It was 2 to 3 every day, pretty much, but never a 12 day. You know?
No, I did 8 on a Saturday once.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I think 8's my record too. And then I saw these people winning contests doing like 24.
It doesn't seem real.
Dude, I was like, listen, on that day, I remember where I was. I was in West Virginia and I sold 8 and I only talked to 1 person that didn't buy. And I was like on my way to eat lunch and I already had 5 or something like that. And it was like, I didn't have any more time and I didn't talk to, except for 1 person that said no. So how are you going to do 2.5 times that much? Anyway, we'll see. I'm open to the idea that someone could do it better, but my experience was much more than 10 in a day is pretty tough.
Yeah, I remember when it changed to Vivint and we had to wear the orange shirt. Those were tough times for me.
You just like knock the door and look at them and like the first thing they see in your eyes is this okay? Do you know? You didn't carry a baby blue over, huh?
It wasn't an option.
Oh, it's always an option, Matt. It's always an option.
But yeah, I sold alarms till 2012, and then at the very end of 2012, December 27th, which is the day I released my album.
Oh, really?
This 2012, yeah.
Yeah.
I met my wife, you know. And
Where did you guys meet?
we met at a little place called the Lost Leaf in Phoenix.
That's the
at a
story.
concert.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
It's like a romantic comedy.
And so I'd done the summer, so school was over, right? I'd finished college, and so you mainly work the summers. Mm-hmm. So I met this girl I really liked. I was back home in Arizona visiting, and I just kind of stayed there and dated her. And then when the summer came around, I was nervous to leave for 4 months. And that's when Solar had come out, and that Hawaii had opened, and I flew to Hawaii to try it out. And
That was in 12?
That was
13.
2013, summertime. March.
So you started, summertime of 13.
Before the summer.
Oh, okay.
If I couldn't figure out solar, I was going to do a summer, but
Got it.
I figured it out.
So you started before me. I started in the winter of 13. So you went straight out to Hawaii. And what was that like? Early Hawaii, dude, that looked like so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
What was that beach called you used to go to? Private Beach or something like that?
Secret Beach.
Secret Beach.
Uh-huh.
I think there's still time capsules like buried there. I know Conway buried a capsule out there, and I think I think maybe the Latimers. I don't know if that's true. That was an original crew. Who was all out there when you went? Is Dan?
So Jeff Gallivan had gone out there,
Yeah.
and that was part of the reason I talked to him a lot. It got me out there, a big part actually. And then who else was there? Latimer, Dan Reed.
Conway came on, but not immediately, right?
No, not immediately.
He was selling medical something out there before, wasn't he? Jeff Sorensen. Your brother's still out there, dude. You gotta look out for him every now and then. Just farming.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. So what were those early days like? I heard a lot about it. Yeah, that was when things were coming to, I didn't know it, but that was my last year at Alarms, was 2013, right? And so there was a lot of talk of that team, that Hawaii team.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there, and so there was maybe 30 people, and everyone worked on the west side because that's where it gets better sun. That's where it was more new construction. No one really worked in Honolulu, and all the areas were gone, so I had to work in Honolulu.
Oh, really?
In Kalihi. And there's a lot more language barriers in Honolulu.
Really?
But yeah, it was great. I figured it out.
What an adventure, dude. Like literally going to the islands to sell new place, literally an island, new product, old skill, but needed an adaptation. I remember hearing the week you guys installed like 52 or something like that. Like, and I remember people being like, they're installing 50 a week in Hawaii. That's wild.
That is wild.
Right? Never mind that, like, think of how many processes and stuff have changed since then, but literally like a pioneer. What do you think you learned from those early days? And I mean, that was like the early days of solar. That was the early days of like solar sale. That was like, there in Jersey is where our first two teams were, right? But the volume coming out of Hawaii and like a lot of the culture that we have, at least in street, is largely due to like the way that group worked together, you know?
Yeah. That was a fun time. And then net metering ended like the end of 2015.
What did you feel when you first got there though? Like how did you know that it was for you, and what did it feel like? Like describe like how that like met your needs of your life at that time.
Well, just living in Hawaii is amazing.
Yeah.
And wanted to stay there. I'm lost in the beauty of Hawaii. What was the question?
What did we do to get Monique out there?
She was really interested in Hawaii too,
Okay.
which wasn't a hard sell.
I didn't know she was from Arizona. Maybe I did, but
So we got married in Hawaii.
Okay.
And yeah, so we were dating. I was back and forth, and then I proposed. We moved out there. Got married a week later.
Wow, that's wild.
And I had 0 kids. Right when I met Monique, she had Penelope. Penelope was 4, and then we got pregnant honeymoon night.
Wow, life changed quick.
And then 5 months later, we got pregnant with Juniper. So I had 0 kids, and then in about 2 years, I had 3 kids.
Wow, that's wild. New job, new location, new family roster. Everything is different. Did you feel like pressure to perform then, or was it all like happy times? And
I didn't feel pressure. I'm really confident in my ability to sell.
once you get locked, you feel locked. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel that type of pressure.
That's great. So then what, let's go through some of the changes that you were about to say it. So when you first go to Hawaii, we're just pumping solar, no restrictions. People are saving money like crazy.
I mean, we were a sales organization that just happened to be doing solar.
Yeah,
And that's
I
what it
remember
felt like.
saying that. Yeah, they. I mean, what was the electricity rate then for people on the island?
It was 36 cents.
36 cents, and you were selling what, a 15-cent PPA?
It started at 25 cents.
25 cents.
And then when competitors came out, we lowered it to 19 cents.
But just 50% savings pretty much right away. Yeah. So did it feel easy?
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
So much value for the customer.
Yeah. And then what changed?
And then net metering ended. So I moved to San Diego for about a year. That was the hardest year of my life.
Really? Why?
San Diego.
And what year was that?
That was 2015,
Okay.
16.
Yeah.
That
was a
was the
harder time
one
in San
time I
Diego.
left Vivint. And I went to Bright Energy, Pinnacle, a solar company. And they lasted about 9 months and then went under. And that was hard, even though it's not, when a company goes out of business, obviously it wasn't my fault, but it still feels like it.
Oh, really?
Like a failure. And then, I mean, recruiting people to a company that fails is really hard too.
Mm-hmm. You feel responsible.
Oh yeah. Especially when people move there from out of state. And
That's hard because it's like you knew. I mean, you were operating under what you felt like was best, and it wasn't. And then had it worked out, you'd be a genius. The fact that it didn't, oh, you should have known. That's tough. Yeah.
And then when they went under, I moved back to Arizona. And we were there for about 9 months. And then the batteries came out. And so we moved right back to Hawaii
Yeah, I remember
as soon as
that.
the batteries came out. That was in 2017.
Mm.
And I moved back out in March and didn't have my first install until January of the next year.
You just live off savings that long?
No, I got paid a little up front.
Yeah.
But I was selling a lot. I would get paid $100 per kilowatt at cap,
Yeah.
maxed out of $1,000.
I remember that.
Same, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to sell a lot.
It's crazy to think now. Like, it's awesome to see that your turn times are improving. It's great to see that the team is expanding. It's great to see that you have up and comers. That's awesome. But it is important to understand that, hey, you used to wait a year to get installs. And I think a lot of people don't understand, like, it's been a crazy time for Hawaii. COVID was wild for Hawaii, right? And the regulation, so we're innovating on an electricity product in a place that doesn't innovate very well. They like roots, and they like it to kind of like, they keep the country a little bit, you know what I mean? And so it's funny, like when I first started working with the Western United States and we were looking at Hawaii turn times, because we're really profitable in Hawaii. We love Hawaii customers. We make good money there, but the process was so painful. And I remember thinking like, well, can't we just go in? But it's like, in some ways it operates like a different country than the US, in that the utility company could just, I don't know, not process your application for 7 months. And there's no one.
That's good.
Right? Your 7 months is good. Yeah.
I'd take that back to the.
And we'd be like, can't you just go into your HECO there, right? Yeah. Can't you just go into HECO? And I remember same problem with MECO, and be like, dude, it doesn't work that way there. Like, if they don't want to do it, they just won't do it. And I remember thinking like, there's got to be something we can do, and just working through all that. But the result was people wanted solar. And I remember we would project installs, and customers were calling you. Sanders was out in Maui, and they'd be like, hey, can I yet? Nope, still waiting. And I remember being in California, like, I can't believe they're still on the hook. But the answer was they can't go anywhere else because they're held up everywhere. So everybody just waiting around. That's rough.
That was rough.
And you're innovating on a new product. You're doing batteries, and we had to figure out pricing. We had to figure out installs. What was all that like? What did you see happen to the market and the teams?
So yeah, it was very hard to recruit because it took so long to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to find someone that was skilled and talented but had savings, which is a hard person to find, right?
Yeah, it's like Stanford sports. It's like, I need somebody that can crush it on the football field, but also is very, very smart.
Great analogy, yes. And the first battery sold, the LG battery. Everyone that's selling the battery now that never sold that is lucky. They didn't have to deal with that.
Is that the ones that bricked, or did that come later?
The what?
The bricking batteries. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you would install it. It would sit so long waiting for PTO, and in the time waiting for it to install the battery would essentially go bad, because if the charge gets down to 0, the battery is like destroyed. So we're installing all these batteries. They're sitting on the side of the house. It takes so long to PTO that by the time they go to turn it on, it doesn't work anymore.
And then, a couple of years later, a lot of them started to break and stuff. So we've had to face that problem.
Crazy.
But that's hard when you sell solar to a customer. They don't have a good experience. So
Especially on a small island where they know you, trust you, and there's community.
you see them at the grocery store.
Yeah. And you're like, listen, you want to blame the utility company, at the same time, that doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, I know it goes so far.
Yeah. That only works for the first 4 months. The next like 8 months, it doesn't work as well. So how did you recruit and get people out?
So I had a hard time from 2017 to 2023. I mean, the team was just me and 3 to 7, 8 people.
That's 6 years. When you say like you don't quit and you stick with things, that's real. Most people go stick with something for a year.
Stay in Hawaii. My family loves Hawaii. We really want to stay.
Yeah, and your girls do good there and stuff. Yeah, and you love it there.
And I saw these people in California and other markets making more money, and I was tempted, but
yeah, we had multiple conversations. It seems like every 6 months we'd have a strategy conversation of where should I go? What should I do? And on a couple of those, I was like, you should move, you know?
I'm so happy I stayed.
Yeah, me too. There's not many people that could have done that. You know what I mean? Like your patient persistence and your ability to still adapt. Like one thing that you were able to do pretty well is the team shrunk. So, all right, I got to switch and do personal. And the cool thing is it was never like a senior leader that had to say, hey, Matt, you better start selling. You're running out of money. It was more like, okay, I guess it's a low time, so I'll go sell. And you've always maintained really good personal sales. And you've had competitors come after your people and pick them off. I mean, again, small island, like you train these people up and then they go sell elsewhere, pick apart the team. Talk about maybe what that's like, because it's one thing to say that you're patient and persistent, but 6 years with a team of 1 to 5, that's agonizing for most people. You know?
It was. I enjoyed it a lot, though. With the smaller team, there's less work, right? I just had to focus on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so with those, when the kids were really little, I feel like in a lot of ways I got more time with them. And I love hard work and I'm willing to make sacrifices and stuff.
Where does that come from? The love hard work thing. Where does that come from?
I think just growing up as a kid, I wanted nice things and I was willing to work for them. And I had lawn mowing jobs when I was 12. And then I started working at a ceiling fan store when I was 14 for Mitch Loudon, which I love so much. Still to this day, I'll call him every now and then. He actually moved across the street from my parents now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
But he gave me a job and was such a good example of an honest, like, hard worker. And I was able to make enough money to get the things I want. And that was always worth it to me, to make the sacrifice to get the cool shirts, to buy my own car or whatever I needed.
Seemed like that for me too. I don't know if it's a generational thing, but what year were you born?
82.
Me too. What's your birthday?
February 19th.
Okay, you're 6 weeks older than me. So I had a paper route when I was a kid. Got it when I was 12.
Never did the paper route.
Oh, dude, paper route in Seattle is brutal. It just sucks. It's like they have to be delivered I mean, it's great. There's this article that Warren Buffett wrote, and he's like, the biggest problem is there's no more paper boys, because it gave a 12-year-old a responsibility that was just big enough where it's like, you have to go, same with lawn mowing. It's like, if you tell this guy you're gonna mow his lawn, you gotta mow his lawn. It's not like, oh, I don't feel good. It's like, well, you gotta do it, you know? And so, but the thing is, in Seattle, it rains every day. And so I'd literally put on I'd have to come home.
You got to put them in the plastic bag.
Yeah, you got to put them in the plastic bag. So I have to come home before all my friends. Then I got to stuff these papers, then I got to go deliver them. And then every weekend, you got to do it early in the morning. And so it just taught me, like, before I go do what I want to do, I have to do what I have to do. You know what I mean? But then you got to go collect the money. So you got to go knock on the door and get your $2.80 from every customer or whatever. And then you go around to your 30 people and you get the money. I can't believe that it worked. Like, the amount that I was willing to do, I made $120 a month. My dad made me save 50% of it. And so I did all that work every day for $60. But no, none of my friends had money, and I always had money. And it always seemed worth it to me. I never would do my paper and be like, this isn't worth it. I don't know why. Like,
That's worth it?
yeah, just what you said, like, it always felt worth it. Like, I don't know where that comes from, and I hope there's opportunities like that. I want my kids to learn that, but like,
I know I want my kids to learn that too.
you don't see kids mowing other people's lawns anymore.
But in Outliers, that book, Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about desired difficulties. I think that's what he calls it.
Yeah.
But like out of necessity, I had to work to get the things. Our kids don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I want my kids to learn that.
Let's figure that out. Yeah. I do things, I did this thing with my son. It was one of my favorite experiences with him, where he wanted this new surfboard, and it was right before Christmas, or it was like Thanksgiving time. We were going to Waco. There's a surf pool in Waco where the wave is perfect and it just goes. Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun. It actually helped me with my surfing a lot, because you do the math and it's like, okay, I can go to Waco. You get 13 to 15 waves per session, right? 6 to 7 right, 6 to 7 lefts, and they're perfect and no one else is in them. And a lot of times when you're in the ocean, you get 5 waves, but only 2 of them are good, and then 1 of them you get cut off. And so I did the math on one of them, and I was like, a trip to Waco in 2 days, I'll get like 3.5 months worth of surfing in, because of the wave count, right? It's like, okay, well, I'll go out there. Yeah, I'll do 7 sessions. I'll get 120 waves at home with my travel schedule and the weather and the crowd to get 120 good waves. That takes me 4, 5, 6 months. So anyway, me and Rocco were going to go to Waco, and he didn't have the right board for it. And I was kind of torn, because I was like, well, I want him to not just get a $700 board whenever he wants, but at the same time, I don't want him to go on this trip with the wrong equipment, because it's like, you don't want to go down there and have a board it's not the right board. And so we did this thing where I was like, okay, you're going to pay for some of it. And I can't remember how much he had to pay for, but there were certain chores that he could earn money for. And then I was like, then the other thing you're going to do to pay for this is you're going to do 30 acts of service. And you have to come up with them. You got to look around and you got to keep track of them. And then I told him, it was like, if you don't do 30,
beautiful thing.
It was amazing. Like, it was amazing. And then I was like, if you don't do 30 acts of service, the ultimate act of service by your birthday, January 20th, is you're going to give this surfboard away to somebody. And I was dead serious. I paid for it. So I was like, you're going to give this away. And I actually kept a journal on it of the things that he did, but he was like a kid. And one of the things, we were down in Waco and we went to the sandwich shop, and he noticed there was this like homeless woman sleeping like outside. And I saw him looking at her, and I was like, hey, do you think like that's your service? And he looked at me like, please no. And I was like, I'm just saying, like, and my son bought her lunch with his allowance. He made like $5 a week at the time, or $8 a week or whatever. And I was like, so that was more than worth it for me to have him like start to think like that. And he still does that stuff. He got a new surfboard this year, and I was like, all right, dude, it's going to be 50. So he keeps track of it. But I don't know that it's exactly the same, because I don't know. I wouldn't have had money if I didn't work. You know what I mean? So to some degree, that's probably born in people that are doing this now. We need to figure out a way to get that into yeah. It was a good experience though. Like, I was really glad that we found that, like, in our family.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Yes, we have a shared note. He has to like track it all and everything. Sometimes I have to grind him and like, serve somebody. But for the most part, it at least helps him to understand that, hey, a lot of people don't get to do this. A lot of people don't get a new surfboard. I certainly didn't when I was a kid. I never would have asked for a new bike,
Me neither. I bought my own bike. I remember that. Robinson. Remember that brand?
Yeah, the Robinsons are sick. I had a Diamondback. I couldn't roll with a Robinson. Charles Townsend rode a Robinson. He was like the main BMXer. He actually might have been out of Arizona. I don't know if he was or not. All right, trip down memory lane. What have you experienced? Now your team, describe the makeup of your team and how much has changed from a year ago.
So the team is mainly local.
Which is crazy compared to we always had local people on the team, but the leaders and up-and-comers were always transplants, right?
Which I love.
Yeah.
I love providing the opportunity to people that were born and raised there.
They're actually probably better suited for it as far as their ability. Hawaii is unique, like their ability to connect and actually like click with people. Like, they're actually better tuned for that.
They are. And
you're local now. You count. Are you still Howley out there, or are you in?
I feel pretty local now.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, Chris, Esmena, and Chantel, it started with them, where they're kind of like the glue, like the mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
When about a year ago, or October of 2023 is when Chris started. And
How'd he join the team?
through Amber.
Oh, job listing.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And he was just crazy motivated. He sold 12 his first week.
Whoa.
And those were all assists, but
So
he just did everything you told him to do. He read the training manual. He worked the hours. He wasn't scared.
to him, that probably just felt normal. Like, yeah, what else do you do when you start a new job? You want to impress your boss, right? Wow.
And then as we brought on more people, he's just so generous with his time and his house. And then his wife came on board, Chantel, a little bit after. And for a while, I mean, almost every day there was people at their house. You know, they were doing role plays at night after work. And one thing unique about the Hawaii team, too, is they do so many assists. They love working together. And it makes me think of the book Happiness Advantage when they talk about relationships. How that's such an important part of being happy. There's so many good relationships on our team.
Yeah, you can feel it.
They spend so much time together.
Yeah, you can feel it. We were talking in the last show about walking into a room. I only get to walk into your office once every couple of years now. Like, it's pretty rare with all of the teams that we have. But it's weird having not been there. I could walk in and you can immediately, your body can sense it, where it's like, oh, these guys love each other and have fun immediately. And then you walk into another team that's down, or like, and the feeling of your team the last time I was there is a little bit like, we're still here, but we are struggling. Now you go in and it's like, people are celebrating, people are happy. There's a giving spirit, but it's like
Giving spirit.
Yeah, like you almost don't need, like, I almost don't need to ask questions to help like evaluate a team. I almost just need to feel it and watch it for a little bit and be like, keep doing this. You got it. Let me pull out. You know what I mean? That's awesome.
And yeah, so much gratitude in the room. I've just been thinking about like second chances too. So many people, I mean, myself included, right? Just so grateful for this opportunity. And a lot of people come in and they just have another chance to do something big, and they're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could name every individual on the team that they're so grateful for it.
You can tell, like you can tell when I was there. And you can also tell that a lot of people, like with your 6 years of a small team and the utility company kicking you and COVID in Hawaii was nuts. If anybody listening didn't go to Hawaii,
Ticket on the beach.
I remember that. And like,
There was a police officer like hiding in the bushes.
yeah, and your house was like, you backed up to like a private like ocean front, and she was outside walking by herself being healthy, and someone rolled up on a four-wheeler, right? And wasn't the ticket like $5,000 or something crazy?
I can't remember,
I
but
remember she got it dropped on the,
he was super confrontational, and she's just like, I'm just gonna walk away now. And he followed her, and like he was gonna arrest her. And
yeah, but it was crazy. So it's like you got limited tourism coming in, you've got uncertainty, you're out there on this island, you've got all these mandates, you've got complications from batteries, you've got complications from the utility company, you've got a small, shrinking, dying team, like the level of resilience that you had to demonstrate. And so now the cool thing is when the opportunity came back, when the tide changed, you weren't down and out and despondent. You were able to have energy to capture it and have that second chance. Why do you think that worked out? A lot of people have the second chance, but they're too tired or turned off to go after it.
I'm not tired or turned off.
I know.
I'm full of energy. There's so much purpose like in my life right now, more than there's ever been with these people on my team.
So you feel like the purpose, like now that you have the people, the need to be there for them and contribute and invest in them, that's enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
Then it's really important to me. I'm kind of been tripping out over time because a few weeks ago I went to my 25-year state championship reunion.
Wow. State championship for what?
For football.
Oh, wow. No big deal, state champs.
I mean, I say it when I get a chance to say it.
Yeah. State champs 1997. Who's there? 99. There we go.
And so I got to see a lot of the people that I won with, and that was amazing.
How was that?
Super grateful for the relationships and really proud of that group of people. They turned out really well and have families. And then I got to see my coach, Coach Buskin, who we used to be terrified of. But when I saw him, he
not so scary now.
And like asked me about my life and had follow-up questions and was curious, and it was so different. And I've been thinking so much about the people that had such a big influence on my life when I was young, when I was 18, 20. And I can't believe that I'm in that position now, that I'm the old guy that has, young 20-year-olds. And it matters, how I behave, how I treat them. And yeah, it's really, really important to me.
It's crazy.
I've even called like a handful of people, which has been such a rewarding experience. I think I called you just to say thanks one day.
Yeah.
And I called Mitch Loudon and Sean Brenchley and Bodie Gardner and Mendez and a lot of these people. And what was so rewarding is they answered their phone, they talked to me, they remembered me. So yeah, I've been thinking
it's more than that. Let me cut you off. It's more than that they remembered you. I mean, I still work with you, but I remember telling you I don't get phone calls like that. Like, also reminded me to give more phone calls like that. But most of the time when somebody calls, it's not to say, hey man, I just want you to know that I'm really grateful for the impact you've had in my life. It is a rare, not just in this job, like how often do you get those? It's next to never, right? But it didn't just make my day, like that makes your month. I keep those, I journal about this, I write about it because sometimes I get down and I need it every now and then, How did it feel to make those calls?
I'm just grateful that I was in a good enough place to make them,
Yeah, that's also a good point. You don't make those calls if you're not in a good place.
Yeah.
You only make them if you're doing good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really rewarding to make those calls.
That's awesome. Good old Brenchley.
Mm-hmm.
I love that guy.
Talked to him for a while.
He's got kids getting married now. He had 2 kids get married last year, right? His oldest 3 are married now. That's wild.
Yeah, I love him so much. He was there for me during some hard times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dude has one of the biggest hearts of any sales leader I've ever met. We were just telling a funny story about him and Vern. Jeremy Marshall they were good friends. And Jeremy was like, I think he was like 2 years younger than Sean, but he would always tell me, he's like, you're like my dad. He didn't really have a dad, And Sean filled so many of those roles for so many people. But back to what you said about so think about your relationship with Sean Brenchley, Todd Peterson, Bodie, Jeff, all those people, right? And then what you said earlier was I'm not tired because I feel so much purpose. The people, you are that to them. When I met Todd, he was early 30s. Yeah. And he drove that white Dodge truck and he was living in a house that somebody was renting that owed him money. Or he was renting it. He was living there free because they owed him money and they couldn't pay him. And I was like, this guy is the most successful person I've ever seen. And now I look back and it's that was you 4 years ago, right? And so to say that it matters so much, you can't calculate how much it matters. I remember conversations I had with both Sean and Todd that formed my career that they won't remember at all. I've actually had a chance to talk to Sean about that, where I was like, you told me this and it changed my life. He's like, I don't remember that at all. Felt like Ricky Bobby was like, I lived my whole life by that. He's like, that's stupid. You could be 4th, 5th. Anyway, what a cool experience to be able to call and give gratitude to it. That's great. What advice would you give somebody that's having a hard time seeing the long term, that's maybe in that difficulty moment? One of the highlights of my November was when your Hawaii team was beating everybody in Atomic. And this is Atomic. This is Bakersfield, this is San Luis Obispo, this is Thousand Oaks, I'm Visalia now, they're hitters.
Uh-huh.
And
Bakersfield won the bigs.
Yeah.
We were beating them.
And we kept looking and we're like, oh my gosh, Oahu is doing more volume than anybody in Atomic. What would you say to somebody that is on the 3 years ago, 2 years ago side of things right now?
I would say leading by example is really important to gain your own sales. One thing we do a lot is we love Mondays. We love starting the week strong. We do a lot of the Monday incentives. And almost like a good morning to the day, when you have a good start to the week, it just carries over.
There's science to that, There's it's not just that it mathematically makes sense, but you're on a different chemical cocktail, right? You actually are more capable, likely to have a better week. Like you start out Monday productive. It's like they say, like if you have like nothing on your to-do list, you kind of do nothing all day. If you have 20 things, it's like, whoo, like you're rolling. You get more done on the days where you have lots of stuff than if you have one thing. And so what happens, I think, is on a Monday, you go out and you get a sale. And it's like, not only do you have a sale under your belt, but your dopamine receptor and your productivity chemicals are pouring into you. And so it's so much easier to sell and be productive. It's just like if you work out and then you want to have like a conversation with somebody, like you're showing up better to that conversation if you got that workout. Or for you, like, oh, you got to play your guitar for an hour and you worked out and you read a sale. Like, watch out. You know what I mean? That's such a powerful thing.
I mean, you said it, but that's the other advice I'd give them too, is
What's
just
that?
control the things that you can control. And a big part of my routine is just, it's almost like every morning I'm just doing everything I can do to create that cocktail that you were talking about, to be in a good place.
What are those things for you then, like in your morning?
So I get up early,
What time are you up?
6, sometimes earlier. I get up early and I play guitar first thing,
First thing.
very first thing.
Wow.
And
In your house, or do you go outside?
I go outside. Fortunately, I used to be on the beach. We just moved to Haleiwa, and I still have a big yard. I have an acre.
Dude, I'd like to be your
here.
neighbor. I'd go sit on my porch and just hear that distant, like, plucking, you know?
But it makes it easy to wake up, because people talk about waking up early and doing a cold plunge or doing something miserable. I don't get that.
Okay.
I get
like
up early
this.
and I do something that I love, I look forward to. And then I come in, get my kids up, ready for school, and I'm in such a good mood, like an annoying good mood. And then after I take them to school, I do a workout. I do push-ups and pull-ups and running. That's all I've done for the last 10 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you look great for that. I'm not just saying that. You're dialed. Nice. Push-ups, pull-ups, and running, and that's it.
I do 300 push-ups on Monday, 100 pull-ups on Tuesday, and I run 5 miles on Wednesday.
Okay, so it's
And
a hefty amount of push-ups and pull-ups and running. Back to the other thing that's advantageous about you maximizing your morning is you're in Hawaii. So nobody is calling you if you're up at 6. I mean, I get up early and you're 2. I mean, it's 4 a.m. I'm not calling you at 4 a.m. The only person that would call you is Jordan LaPlace. That dude calls me about once a quarter at like 5:30 in the morning. So that's very interesting. So wake up, do something you want to do, which is play the guitar, be creative, get your kids up, take them to school, then you work out.
Then I work out, and then I read the Bible or read a devotional with my wife, or have some type of intentional time with her. And then I'm really big on relationships too. I mean, if I'm in a good place with my family and my wife and my kids, and I'm taking the time to be there with them, I'm so much more effective when I show up to work. You talk about living a life that you're excited about. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so important to do the things you like to do, take the time to do them.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a great example of that. And you know the things that make you tick, right? Like, you know the things that you have to have. I was listening to a podcast of Jesse Itzler's at the beginning of the year. Castle sent it to me. And he talks about his vitamins. I don't know if you remember him saying this from our thing, but he's like, I have my vitamins that I have to take that help me show up better. And he's like, I love saunas and I love cold plunges. And so he's like, those are my vitamins. I love running. So that's like, I wake up, I run, I sauna, I cold plunge, I taking my vitamins, and then I'm ready to be healthy, But it's cool because it's like the things that make you who you are. You have to be who you are to ultimately be the best version of yourself, right? So if you're not a wake up in the morning and punch an alligator and jump in the ice, to some degree you have to challenge yourself, but I think knowing yourself well enough to get yourself the vitamins and things that you need so that then you can show up and do those hard, gritty things, I don't think you probably could have done the last couple of years without that stuff, you're a relationships person, so the relationships have to be, everyone's a relationship person, but you got to be dialed. You know that you need that creative spark, right? And so I really appreciate and applaud you getting that for yourself, because the result, on an org chart, I'm your boss. A stoked Matt Hinze is the best thing for me, right? So however, you got to get stoked because now your team's producing more. Now everybody's happy. The culture's good. The customers are thriving. This is great. You know what I mean? So I really think that like getting yourself dialed is the best thing. It's best for your family. Like a annoyingly happy dad's better than a grumpy sad dad. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that's what it is with a life you're excited about. It's making sure that you're able to show up in a way that you're proud of, you know.
And then another thing I'll mention of speaking of like working when you're happy or in a good place or is just when's the best time to make a sale. Right after a sale. But so I mean, taking advantage of the momentum you get.
Yeah.
Some days the job's easy, some days it's really hard. When it's easy, go for it. Like work hard that day. Because it's going to be hard the next day or one of these days.
Talk about your running challenge, the challenge that you were doing when I was there. Omar, you'll like this.
The 4x4 by 48.
Yeah. The thing that sounds easy, but it's actually pure torture.
So I was with a group of dads at a school lunch. Someone brought it up. You run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Which sounds like that's not that hard.
It sucks.
I know. Like when you walked me through it and then I keep tell the story.
So we were talking about it and we're like, yeah, let's do it. You know, some date it was like 2 months out. And everyone's like, sure, okay, that date we'll do it. And then
4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Yeah. So then that date showed up and I got the text messages and the calls and like, we're really doing it. And so we started it. 4 dads.
Everybody do it? Four dads, 4 hours, 4 miles. You guys. All right.
3 dads finished.
Okay.
What's
the 4th dad's name? Say his name.
I can't say it. No. So we started at 10 p.m. We ran 4 miles at 10 p.m. and then again at 2 a.m. and then 6 a.m. And then you do the math, right? Every 4 hours.
And it ends up being how many miles?
48 miles.
It ends up being 48 miles in the 48 hours? Oh, that's how it works. Okay.
And so...
Bro, that's crazy.
It's stupid. But it's funny because at the beginning of each 4 mile run, everyone's miserable and grumpy. And then towards the middle, towards the end, you know, get the endorphins going. We're happy. We're talking about things we love. And then we separate and then we get back.
Oh, so you guys actually ran it together?
We ran it together to keep everyone accountable. And we all lived about
4 miles apart.
about 15 minutes apart.
Yeah.
So that was a little part of it too, driving, meeting up. But that was actually, when it was all over, I mean, I was happy I did it.
I can't remember if I was there when you were doing it or just had done it, but I remember it was like raining. I mean, it's always raining on and off there, but.
I mean, I felt really close with those 4 dads. Yeah. Because we told each other everything, the good, the bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. You get out there, that's cool. I think that challenges like that are important. Like it reminds you that you're alive and can do hard things and stuff like that. But the fact that you would seek it out, every time I talk to you, you're on to something. You're working on something that you're stoked on or that makes you happy, which I think is important. Like a lot of this job it's 2 things. From a tactical standpoint, it's knowing what to focus on, right? There's so many millions of things that you could focus on, but how do you pick the right things to focus on? That's part of it. But then the other thing is bringing a capable self to it, right? Because it's like you could say like, yeah, the people are the most important, so I always focus on the people. But if you suck, it's like that's not going to help. Or if you're not in a good place or you've been not taking those vitamins, then you show up. But you seem to do the building up and development of yourself. That includes your family and stuff. And then the knowing what to work on. But you kind of bridge it with this patience that most people don't have. There's like a tenacity to go for it when you have momentum, but there's a patience to not jump off the cliff when you don't have it.
Yeah.
It's a really unique, like,
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to break down why it's working. And there's a lot of other people, like if you pull you out, put someone else in, the result's not the same, you know?
Makes me think of another example in psychology of selling when he says, fear of loss is 2.5 times stronger of an emotion than desire to gain. But I just changed the emotions a little bit, where just a hard emotion, you know, a negative emotion just is way stronger than a happy emotion, right? It overtakes it. And so, again, if you have it's just so much easier to do the job if you're in a good place. So doing those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we used to have this rule when I was running sales teams. I always had 4 rules, and one of my rules was just no negativity. And I actually had a system for it where if you were negative, I would talk to you about it. And it got to a point where the team would bring it up. They're like, this guy's being negative and I can't handle it, because we'd attract people that think that way. And we'd always say the job's hard enough. I don't need people making it harder. And so literally formally, like if you were negative, I would say, hey, like your car group, you're like dragging them down. Like, so I don't want to hear about it again. If I do, then we'll probably have to part ways. And then if I hear about it again, I'm like, hey, you're probably just not going to be, like, literally we had a formal system for whiners. But the thing we would always say is the job's hard enough. I don't need you to make it harder. But how often do we do that to ourselves, right? Where it's like, dude, that's rough. Like, it's hard. The last thing you need, I always think of this, like, you might have heard me say this in sales training before, but think if you and your like mind were 2 people. So there's Matt and then there's Matt's mind, and you go to like knock together, and you go like prep a meeting together, and you go like recruit together. So if you go up to that door and Matt's mind is like, you come off the door and he's like, that was terrible. You suck. And nobody here, the time to sell this was 5 years ago. You can't do 50 accounts in a week now. Everybody already has it. And even if you did sell that many, the utility wouldn't put them through anyway. All right, so that's one person. Or you can come off the door and then Matt's mind can be like, it's all right, man. You got this. You sold hundreds of these. It'll be all right. Let's go to the next door. Shake it off. You wouldn't. Why would you hang around with Matt's mind number 1? That, right? Like, it's not helping you. If that was a physical person, you would distance yourself from that relationship. And you would gravitate towards Matt's mind number 2. But how often do we make ourselves live with Ty's mind number 1? Like, you know?
Cruel to ourselves.
You can be really cruel to yourself, and it's not even and sometimes people think that there's like honor in suffering like that. It's inefficient is the problem that I have with it. And I'm not perfect at it, but a lot of times it's like, okay, don't have the thought because it's not going to help you, right? But you seem to do, I don't know that you're always perfect at it, but you seem to capitalize when you're good at it, is what I would say.
I think I've grown in that area a lot. Like, have you heard the term self-compassion versus self-esteem?
No.
So
sounds like hippie stuff, Matt. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, self-esteem is kind of like how we're different from everyone.
Okay.
How we're self-compassion is how we're alike. So, like, for example, so with self-compassion, it's being compassionate to yourself, recognizing that everyone suffers, there's pain in the world. So if I'm having a hard day, I'm not the only one. I don't isolate. I don't over-identify with the problem. And I think being kind to yourself when you're doing this job is really, really important. Yeah. And overall in life.
I think so too. Like, if you were to see Matt number 1 berating Matt, you would probably be like, hey, let him up, man. Relax. What are you doing? You would stand up for him, but we don't often stand up for ourselves or give ourselves that. Like, and I know that may sound a little abstract, but I literally have said out loud, well, psychology of selling, I like myself, I like my job, I can't tell you how many times I've audibly said that to myself alone working, but I've audibly said, like, especially in selling solar, like, you still got time, you got this, right? You've done this thousands of times before, it's all right, still in it, right? That's, I like that. The self-compassion is not identifying. In Turning Pro, have you read Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield? It's really good. But it basically talks about an amateur identifies himself with the problem. So you're like, I got screwed in high school. I broke my knee, or else I'd be pro. That's amateur like type stuff. Or yeah, I had to go to the bad neighborhood in Honolulu, like when I first got there, or else you should have seen what happened, right? So part of their identity is this, they identify with their problem, their instrument, whatever. Whereas a pro is like, yeah, sometimes you get areas that are not ideal. There's not more to it than that. You just got to like work through it.
Seeing the problem as it is and not zooming in so much on it.
Do you still read a lot like you did back then?
I do. I love to read. That's a big part of our culture too. We read a lot of books together.
You do like a book club type?
We do a book club, and we have a separate chat for it. We post on it every day. And our team name, Ohe, means bamboo.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to talk about that.
Yeah, which is really, I mean, so bamboo, It grows roots for 4 or 5 years before it sprouts.
Maybe 6 in this case, huh?
Good point. And then when it sprouts, it grows, has really rapid growth. And so it's just a great analogy from my experience in Hawaii. And it fits for the long cell to install process, which has gotten better. And then once bamboo grows, it bends, but it doesn't break. And it stays green all year round. There's a lot of amazing analogies with it.
Isn't it weird how like you learn to identify with like things like in nature like that? Like if you look around, there's examples of how the world works and how like we work within it kind of everywhere. And I love that your team identifies with it because it's such a true principle. Like, but you know, being able to gain knowledge, motivation, inspiration from all different aspects is like a sign of like a developed mind, right? To look at bamboo and be like, that's just like us. Like, and then people like, they're part of it. We're all part of the earth. We're all part of the experience. And it becomes a part of your identity to say like, yeah, I mean, you've said it. You started this podcast by saying, I learn slow, but once I get it, I get it. Just bamboo, right? And then it's like, well, you know, I don't really ever quit. Like I just keep going. It's bamboo, right? And so now to have that branded as your team is such a solid, like, yeah. And I love the asterisk of it stays green year round, like they stay up year round. That's cool. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. Well, I'm stoked for you. What are you excited about for 2025? What's this the year of for you?
I'm really excited to grow the outer islands.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about that secondhand, by the way. A lot of people are like, hey, Matt's got this like vision of, yeah.
And we're going to start doing a blitz every month.
Oh, cool.
And I'm excited to see how it grows organically with the people we have. And I'm really excited about, this is just such a fun part of life where, like I was saying, I'm tripping out over time. I'm older, but not that old. I'm still healthy. My kids are at a really fun age. I'm really excited about, you know, daddy-daughter dates and surfing with my kids. And I'm really excited to promote more people. We have so many talented people. I'm excited to do some international vacations with my family.
Where are you guys going? Do you have anything planned yet?
Japan.
Oh, man. I don't know what it is in my life right now, but everything is saying, Ty, go to Japan. I love everything about the idea. Yeah, but and you're like the third person that said, oh, I'm traveling. Where are you going? Japan. I just need to go to Japan. You'll have to tell me how it is. I'm sure it'll be amazing.
That's awesome. And it's pretty amazing after doing this job for years, the type of life that we get to live. And so I'm really excited about just continuing to take care of my family and make good investments for the future. Those RV parks are doing great.
Good. I'm glad to hear. I wish I would have gotten in on them.
Those are good.
Dude, that's great. Good for you, man. Well,
I'm doing a marathon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of the guys on the team are doing it. The Hawaii Marathon.
Oh, wow. Does that go, where does that go?
It's every December. A few people did it.
Does this go along the highway there? Okay. But not how big is that whole loop? You don't make it the whole way.
I think you run it twice.
Around the island twice?
Not around the island.
The inner,
Somewhere around Honolulu. And
so is it hilly or is it flat?
it's pretty flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the longest run you've done?
I did a marathon when I was 21, and then I ran a half marathon during COVID.
Okay.
I did it on my own because it canceled.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. You're the kind of guy that does the half marathon even after it gets canceled. That's what's up. Well, I'm stoked for you, man. Thank you for sharing your journey and for imparting the wisdom. I really think there's this industry is such a long game, right? Like if you're in it to grow the bamboo immediately, like you can't just dump fertilizer on it. Like there are roots that take place. And I think you're a really good example of that, but I appreciate you sharing because there's a lot of people that had hopes, ambitions for their markets, and they've encountered some resistance, or maybe even just personal. But there are seasons it does come back around, and I think your ability to capture the momentum on your downhill part of the race has been world class. I mean, literally to see, if you would have told me a year ago that Ohe would be beating everybody else in this quarter, like in upfront volume. I could not have seen the bridge that connected that scenario. And to be like at the helm of it is really cool. And with a whole group of people you've developed next to you. So shout out to the team. I loved my time there. What was I there, a month and a half ago? And rooting for you guys. I know you'll keep growing, and I'm excited to get us back on all the islands again. That would be great. So we had said that we had started talking, and you had mentioned that you had actually written out your eulogy, which is kind of I think you're the first person that I know that's done that. Okay. So how did that come to be?
So
was it like an exercise that somebody like told you to do?
I went to this man's like Christian camp a couple of years ago, and they talked about doing it.
And you did it.
And I actually did it. Wow. And just that idea of like beginning with the end in mind, this is like the real end.
And you'll share it.
I'll share it, and it's hard to read because I'm reading it of like the type of person that I want to be, what I want people to say about me. And we talked about how we're cruel to ourselves, and sometimes it's hard to say nice things about ourselves, but that's what I'm doing in this. This is what I would hope people would say about me. Yeah,
awesome. Well, thanks for being willing to share it.
And I read it in the first person. That's how I wrote it. Matthew Hinze was a man of integrity, a man that stood up for what he believed in. Matthew fiercely protected his wife and his family. He was a great listener, and people felt safe in his presence. Matthew was fun, a very fun dad that enjoyed playing with his kids. He was also a gentle giant and a great snuggler. Matthew was affectionate. He expressed his love with his words and his actions. He was intentional with his time and his words. Matthew was a man of God and loved serving others. He was generous and giving to those less fortunate. Matthew was forgiving. He made a lot of mistakes but learned from them and always continued to learn and improve. Matthew understood who he is in God's love. He forgave himself and he forgave others. He was always thinking of others. Matthew was healthy emotionally, spiritually, and physically. He was strong. He loved push-ups, pull-ups, and running. Matthew was influential. He was a great leader, and he led by example. He helped many people he helped many people earn and get what they want. He was successful financially, but always stayed humble and frugal. Matthew was wise with his money and his investments and took very good care of his family. Matthew loved experiences more than things. He traveled the world with his family. He was diligent in taking his wife on a date every single week. Matthew's wife was his favorite person in the world, and she knew it. He treated her like a princess. Matthew spent intentional one-on-one time with all of his daughters. He modeled a good husband and a good father. Matthew was a caring brother. He reached out to his siblings and remembered special dates and birthdays. He was a playful and generous uncle. He always showed up to special events and moments in their lives. Matthew was a good son. He was a good friend and brought out the best out of people. Matthew conquered his addictions and was willing and capable to help others conquer theirs.
That's amazing. How long did it take you to write that?
It just flowed.
Oh, really? It wasn't the type of thing you had to revise multiple times?
I haven't revised it all. It's pretty sloppy.
Wow. What a powerful thing. How much do you think it's helped you to have that?
It's helped me a lot.
Those are powerful statements. And when you say them like that, there's that connection in your brain where it can't sequence things. It basically just believes what you tell it, right? So when did you write that? You said 2 years ago? Yeah, no coincidence to the fact that like from sobriety to thriving to relationships, it's all better since you wrote that.
It is.
What a powerful exercise, man.
It is powerful. I'd encourage people to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do that in 2025. I've had a thing on my like long-term like list to do to like write kind of like a who I am statement. I do so much of that for work and stuff. And I have a family like statement and a core like philosophy, but I've never done the work of like writing that whole thing out for myself. So that inspires me to do that. Well, thanks for sharing it, man.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very helpful, and It's surprising and not surprising. Obviously, it's overwhelming to me that you would share it, but it's not all that surprising that you have it. Honestly, as a compliment to you, it doesn't surprise me that much. You're like one of like 2 or 3 people I know that has that.
Wow.
Yeah. The other one that I can think of is my little brother, Jordan. He has one.
Oh, he does.
I actually don't know of anybody that has another one. I have to know somebody that does, but I don't know about it. So I'll probably get text me like, I got one. Anyway. Well, thank you for being willing to share that.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Let's close on that, huh?
Okay.
Let's have people go out and be inspired. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
If you're listening to this and interested in joining our teams, DM us on Instagram at Run the League.
What are you waiting for? Run the league, shoot us a DM, and let's get going.